The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Well, the boys are back. As Jaden Daniels said, it was sloppy, but it was good enough to beat the Giants. And more importantly, for a defense that got off to a slow start last year, they got off to a fast start yesterday against a team that maybe couldn't get out of its own way offensively. They were missing a couple of offensive linemen. They could not run the ball at all. But you got to say, on a day that they served up maybe a C game on offense and maybe an A- on defense, they still won, and they win by 2 scores. So the Kvetch meter is very low today. It's not just a win. It's a win where they could have played a lot better, and you got to think as the season goes on, they will play much better than they did yesterday. Now, the competition gets much, much stiffer. And, yes, Green Bay looked really good yesterday. And Micah Parsons, in a limited role, had just 1 sack. So it's no surprise that they go to Green Bay on Thursday night as 3.5-point underdogs. That is going to be a tough task. But remember last year when you looked at the early part of the schedule and you went, oh, my God, Cincinnati on a Monday night, and then they have to go all the way to Arizona and play on a Sunday. And because they had new ownership, they spent the money to put the team up in Arizona for the week. They went right from Cincinnati to Arizona, trained there for the week, and they won both games. So, yeah, it's going to be a long shot to beat Green Bay on Thursday, and they're going to have to play much better than they did yesterday. But don't rule out this group. I mean, this has been remarkable, and it's the coaching of Dan Quinn for sure. It's the great fortune of getting a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who appears to be a generational talent and says all the right things, does all the right things, and, you know, even on a day where he was a little bit off passing, he keeps you on your heels all day. Ran 11 times for 68 yards. Seems like whenever he wants to take off, he can, not just his speed, but his wiggle to get the first down. So there are things to look at off this win, which was, you know, at times ugly to watch, and say, if things pick up, this could be an outstanding team that makes a run at the Super Bowl. And how about even the attendance yesterday? The attendance that they used to announce was somewhere 63,000 plus. They announced attendance yesterday of 65,544, and from people who were there say that was a legit 65,000. And the reason that the number is over 65,000 is that they have added seats. They put back in something like 1,200 seats. And remember this, when they opened up the stadium in 1996, it was 78,000. And then Snyder bought the team a couple years later, got greedy, especially when he brought back Joe Gibbs. They pumped up the attendance to 91,000. It was the biggest stadium in the league, or the stadium that had the highest capacity for a while. And then as things began to deteriorate, and we even had a period where the blackout rule was still in effect, they had to cover up seats, they had to take seats out. It got down below 63,000, and now it's back up. And that's hopefully that's stadium they're all going to be in through the 2029 season. Everything will move full steam ahead, and they'll have the new stadium opening up for the 2030 season. But in the meantime, that's almost 5 full years that you have to play at that stadium. And the fact that people are anxious to get in to the point where they've had to add seats is a good thing. And they've bumped up their season tickets 12,000. Doesn't seem like a lot when you think of the days of RFK where people fought over season tickets and wills and divorces, but it's a step in the right direction for a team that was going in the wrong direction for at least the last 15 years of the Dan Snyder reign of terror. You can look at some of the numbers from yesterday beyond the attendance. This is what Nikki Jabala has in a tweet of what they did defensively. A 48.9% pressure rate, 9 pressures from Dorrance Armstrong, 7 run stuffs. I mean, the Giants, aside from Russell Wilson running for his life, had no running game. Their running backs had 15 carries for 30 yards. No touchdowns. First time they've done that in a game since 2020. It was against the Cowboys, and that was a game where Andy Dalton got hurt. The Giants were 4 of 16 on third down, 0 for 2 in the red zone. Not a lot to really nitpick about this game other than the fact that they were really, really sloppy, and some of it had to do, I think, with the fact that there's essentially no preseason anymore. And smarter coaches are learning this, that you kind of treat September like the preseason. You don't want to go 0-4, but you're not going to be hitting full throttle until you get to midseason. And as always, you want to be playing your best football when you get to the end of the season. Joe Gibbs' teams were great at that. They always played their best football at the end of the season. And how did Joe Gibbs treat the preseason? Yeah, he played his players. He didn't play to win. The last time they won the Super Bowl, they were 0-4 in the preseason. And so I think when you look at what they did this year, giving Jayden Daniels 4 plays and hardly playing the starters at all, you're apt to have something like this. And we'll get to what Dan Quinn said on that in a moment. But this was how Jayden Daniels opened up his news conference yesterday. His numbers, not world-beating, but not bad at all. He did not turn the ball over. He was sacked 3 times. He was 19 of 30 for 233 yards and a touchdown pass to Zach Ertz, who, by the way, caught the last touchdown pass at Northwest Stadium last year, the overtime touchdown to beat the Falcons, which, if it happened today, wouldn't have ended the game because they've changed the overtime rules during the regular season to match up what it is against in the postseason, except for the fact there's only 10 minutes. I think it's going to have more ties than ever, but that's what they've decided to do to make it so fair for everybody. 11 carries for 68 yards. The big story, too, and we'll get to more on this, the comparisons that I have to what they did 13 years ago and what the player they're now calling Bill did yesterday. That was huge. But Deebo Samuel, who was around when Terry McLaurin was not, 10 targets in this game, 7 catches, 77 yards, and he put the game on ice with a 19-yard touchdown run. Still, Jayden Daniels, who is always his biggest critic, opened up by saying this.
We were sloppy, but it's always better to come out with a win than a loss, so we'll learn from that.
2 new teammates, Deebo and Bill. What'd you think of their performance?
They showed up. They made plays when plays need to be made, and I'm super pumped for them to have them on our team.
Jayden, what do you think of your defense's effort today?
You guys seen it. They, made stops when they needed, when we're stalling out and being sloppy on the offensive side of the ball, so kudos to them.
When you talk about the sloppiness in offense, how much of that do you think is just you guys haven't been together a ton, that first group, versus what they were doing on defense?
It's always first game jitters or whatever. You're not going to be at your peak form in week 1, and you don't want to, but it's little stuff that we got to clean up and be more attentive on, and we'll hit that in film and get ready for Green Bay on a short week.
What'd you think of Bill?
He ran hard.
Can you see defenses reacting to Deebo? Maybe you have to use him as a runner. Maybe he's a multi-threat guy. Can you see defenses lining up and reacting to that?
I would think they have to. There's a guy of many talents on that football field.
Jayden, how much more of a comfort level is it for you to know that you guys don't have to be at your absolute best, and you can still control the clock, you can still make big plays, and you can still put the game away at the end?
It's a complimentary sport, and it's good to know that the defense was flying around today and they made plays, but we don't want to rely on defense getting stops, even though we play well off each other, but we want to go out there and execute at a high level.
And I would think that it's easier to execute at that level having not had your timing down on defense than it is on offense. And Dan Quinn kind of acknowledged that to Tom Lavero in the news conference after the game.
You talk about the things that you need to clean up.
Yep.
Does the option no longer exist in this game to clean those things up with starters in preseason football?
Meaning getting more turns and reps?
Yeah.
Yeah, it still exists. I think that's fair to get more turns, and how do you balance back and forth. I thought the penalties went down and then they climbed back up again today. But, it's definitely, a factor into it.
Coach, you mentioned
sometimes just the health and the injuries factor in it too during training camp, but I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, and look, the penalties were an issue yesterday. They had 12 of them for 89 yards. You take those away, maybe those drives sustain, maybe it turns into a blowout. But there's Dan Quinn acknowledging, we're not playing guys in the preseason. He's been in the league a long time. You know, he's coached with a variety of teams as an assistant coach, head coach in Atlanta. This is the way it's done. It's 3 preseason games, and if you get your starters in for a few plays, that's about it. And you pay for it this time of year. But you also, if you get an effort like you did defensively yesterday, you can live with that. As far as the timing, and this might have been an opportunity for Jayden Daniels to say, it really would have been nice to have Terry around during training camp. We didn't get any chance to work together. No. He wasn't going to throw him under the bus in any way. So asked about the timing with Terry McLaurin, who had only 2 catches for 27 yards.
The timing was there. They were doubling Terry a lot, rightfully so. He's earned that right in this league. So other guys stepped up and made plays, but when the plays were there for Terry to show up, and like that third down on the little curl route, he made a play and we kept the chains moving.
Yeah, that's leadership. No. Don't blame this. Don't blame this on the Terry holdout. That's fine. And when we needed him, he was there. And remember, at the early part of last season, they were not connecting well, even though Terry had been there the whole time. It took him a couple of games to get going. This is a long season. As Bill Parcells used to say, hey, fellas, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And whatever you want to draw as a conclusion from yesterday for any player, keep in mind, we're still going to be talking about this football team post-Thanksgiving, post-Christmas, into the new year, and if things go really well, into February. So we're a long way away from what this team is going to look like later in the season. But to the point of preseason and timing, and no matter how much you do in practice, Nick Allegretti, who I think is one of the sharpest guys on the team. I know he's an offensive lineman, and he's not really even going to be a starter once Sam Cosmi comes back. But I've seen him interviewed enough to know that he is a really sharp guy. And this is what he said on the field with Logan Paulson after the game about what it means to play with Jayden Daniels in a regular season game versus preseason and practice.
Man, it's one of those things that, like for Josh today, I'm interested to talk to him because you don't really understand what it's like blocking for Jayden until the game starts. So training camp, you get a little bit of a feel, but today was his first real feel, and you always got a shot with him back there.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I feel like that's something people don't understand. He's a unique player back there.
Oh, we had a scrimmage that we lost as an offense. I'm contesting it because Jayden keeps getting called down, which those aren't tackles, but you got to protect them. I'm still bitter about that one, but it was good.
He's a good Chicago guy, so he knows how to protect Jayden Daniels. So that's that tells you the kind of football we're seeing now. What we're watching is what we used to see in August. Now we see it in September. If you play yourself out of it in September, if you go 0-4, that's a bad thing. But if you're hanging around, you win 2, lose 2, you're going to be fine down the road. Now, I don't know about the Baltimore Ravens. That is a confidence-killing loss last night in Buffalo. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today, but if you watched the end of the game, and I imagine a lot of people turned it off thinking the Ravens had this one in the bag, to give up 15 points in the last 4 minutes of the game. That is a record. No team has ever done that before. You've blown fourth-quarter leads. But to do it the way that they did it with turnovers, and oh my God, that I don't know. But otherwise, if you play pretty well during this month, you're going to be okay. Let me get to the legend of Bill, which is growing, and Ja'Cory Merritt. What does he have? A couple of names. Just call him Bill. I think before long we're just going to say Bill, and everybody knows that you're talking about Ja'Cory Croxy Merritt. Okay, that is going to be enough. It even got to kind of the point of ridiculousness during the game. I mean, who looks at a name like Ja'Cory Croxy Merritt and says, "Oh yeah, that's Bill"? But everybody now seems to know it's Bill, and it caught on quickly in the stadium.
So the PA announcer would say Ja'Cory, and then everybody in the crowd would shout Bill. Mm-hmm. Do you have a preference, and what was it like to hear the crowd support you like that?
I would say whatever you're comfortable with. I really don't care. I mean, I like both names, so you can call me Ja'Cory or Bill, but it was definitely excited to hear the crowd just like rooting for me. This fan base is unbelievable, and like every time I step on the field, I'm gonna give it all to my team and the fan base. So like I feel like we all like just play a part in like to success.
Yeah, call me Bill if you want to. Call me Jacory. Anything's okay. Just give me the football, which is what they did yesterday. To see him get 82 yards on 10 carries, and then score the touchdown. Much like in the preseason when he got his first touchdown and forgot about the ball and Jayden Daniels had to fetch it. Same thing happened yesterday.
Yeah, I forgot the ball again. I mean, I told myself, like, when I score, I'm going to make sure I keep my football. And I think the excitement just take over, and I just end up dropping it. But Terry ended up finding the ball and just giving it to me.
Leading the game in rushing, your first, like, NFL game, did you think you were going to get this many carries, you'd be this involved? Or, like, what were your expectations going in?
I mean, it was whatever the coaches wanted me to do, and I was going to do that 100%. And I just appreciate my teammates for just being with me the whole time.
Yeah, he's refreshing. He's a hell of a story. Remember last year he was at Arizona. He played one game, and the NCAA said, "Wait a minute, you're out of eligibility." So instead of just walking away, he said, "Can I stay with the team and stay on the practice squad? I want to stay sharp." So he did. He knew he was never going to play in a game, but was participating in practice with the rest of the team. And then when it came time for a pro day, they liked what they saw. They took him in the 7th round. And throughout training camp, yeah, he's kind of a nice story, playing in the preseason. But, you don't usually throw a rookie in there right away. And you've got Chris Rodriguez, who had played well enough, we thought, to have them say, okay, we're not going to pay Brian Robinson $3.4 million. So they traded him to San Francisco, and it looks like B-Rob is going to be replaced by C-Rod, not C-Rob, but C-Rod. And then there's some pregame stuff, and somebody notices, hey, wait a minute, Chris Rodriguez's locker is empty. What's going on here? He was inactive yesterday, and Jacory Croxy Merritt, Bill, was, thought to maybe be inactive, or if he played, it was just going to be on special teams. He winds up being the number one back, rushes for 82 yards and a touchdown, and now you wonder, is this going to be a repeat of the Alfred Morris story? Now, in 2012, all the draft attention was, of course, on Robert Griffin III, and now they got themselves a quarterback, and he's the Heisman Trophy winner, and how exciting this could be. Oh, yeah, they're going to have a running back, but he can run too, and they got a bunch of these veteran guys. I mean, they have Roy Halou, and they got Evan Royster, and Ryan Grant is a veteran guy. Mike Shanahan, he doesn't really worry too much about running backs, so one of the veterans is going to play. And then we were doing our shows out there. I was working with Zabe then, and we were doing our afternoon shows out at the park, called Redskin Park in those days. And so one day they bring around this 6th-round draft pick out of Florida Atlantic named Alfred Morris. And he played for Howard Schnellenberger, who was in like his last go-round. And the year before, he had played on a team that won one game. That's it. Nobody was paying attention to Florida Atlantic. So they take him, and he sits down with Zabe and me. He's a really nice guy, nice kid. And I thought, gee, it'd be great if he makes the practice squad on this team. That would be great because he seems like such a nice guy. And then they announced the opening day roster. He's their guy. He runs for over 100 yards, sets a rookie record, and I think a team record, which still stands, 1,600 yards. And I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? Now, is Bill going to be that guy? I don't know. He might. Or he might be like Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas comes out of UNLV in 1974, I believe. Maybe 76, maybe 76. And he breaks Larry Brown's rookie rushing record, also wore number 22. And I'm thinking, is Bill going to be one of these guys? And as the year goes on, and if you saw the way he ran yesterday, he might be their number one back. Now, they'll have games where they're going to have Chris Rodriguez active, and maybe they'll have a game that's more of a grinded out. Wouldn't be a shock if he's active for the Thursday night game in Green Bay. But sometimes you find these guys, and you got to credit Adam Peters for doing that, taking a shot on a guy who nobody was paying attention to. He didn't play last year for Arizona, but they saw enough in the workouts, 7th round, why not? big contribution also. Great pickups on defense. Javon Kinlaw, Dietrich Wise. I mean, this is what you need. This is how good teams are run. They're run with general managers. They're not run with the owner jumping off his yacht and telling you to draft a quarterback who played at the same high school as his son. So it's, I've been doing sports radio in Washington since 1992. The first year was Joe Gibbs' end of first run. Ever since, it's been, except for last year, it's been, oh, my God, here they go again. Yeah, they screw it up 6 ways to Sunday. Now, even in a day where they didn't look especially sharp on offense, where Jaden Daniels' timing is off, he was behind on a lot of passes, they still win a game by 2 scores. And even though they're 3.5-point underdogs heading to Green Bay, you got to think that there's great optimism around here. What an interesting turnaround, at least for me, talking about this football team in a way that is not common to the way I've been talking about them here for 3 decades. All right, coming up, there's some new insight into the Jalen Carter story. I know so much has happened in sports since Jalen Carter spit on Dak Prescott last Thursday, but we're still waiting to find out if there's going to be any punishment for that, and that could come today. Steve Smith, who was involved in a type of spitting incident in the Super Bowl, was on the Dan Patrick Show on Friday with some real insight into that, and we'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So this is an interesting spot for the NFL. If you're watching the Commanders game yesterday, they were hyping the hell out of the fact that we got a Super Bowl rematch on Fox this weekend, with the Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. And they're making such a big deal about it. They're sending the pre- and post-game show, with JB and that crew. They're all going to Kansas City for the game. The best defensive player on Philadelphia, Jalen Carter, who was thrown out of the game last Thursday for spitting on Dak Prescott, is sort of in limbo right now. He's probably going to be fined. No, he's certainly going to be fined. Question is, do you suspend him? I mean, he did miss a game. He didn't play a snap in the opening game because he was thrown out before even Dallas took its first snap. They'd returned the kickoff. There was a player hurt down on the field, and while they're standing around, he decides he's gonna mix it up with a rookie, try and intimidate him. And I don't know, there was something that was said between Carter and Dak Prescott, which caused Carter to spit right in front of the referee, and he was gonzo. This was Carter after the game, who did apologize to his teammates.
Things went how it went. We just got to move on. I've made a promise to them boys. It won't happen again.
Are you worried you might be suspended? Are you worried you might be suspended?
If I get, that text or that call and about that conversation, then we'll handle it as then.
Jalen, when it happened, were you in a fit of rage, or what was your
emotions? I was calm. I walked off the field calmly. I was not mad. That's pretty much, I couldn't really do nothing else. The rough decision is the rough decision on the situation.
You said you weren't last one, please. Did Jack say anything, or was there anything that just made you walk over?
I don't know. When things started to come out and you started seeing things, then we can go off that. But I don't got nothing to say about it. I'm just trying to make sure the team's straight.
Well, like Keith Hernandez in the Seinfeld show, there was a not just a second spitter, but a first spitter, and the first spitter was Dak Prescott, who admitted he spit. Now the league has already looked at Prescott's involvement in this, and they said, no, he's off the hook on this. But there was a spit by Dak Prescott, which may have incited Carter. But here is how Prescott explained the first spit on Thursday night.
I probably spit 1,000 times throughout the game. I mean, especially game day, maybe even in general, and something I guess I'm not proud of. But in that case, he was trolling, I guess you could say, trying to mess with Tyler Booker. I was just looking at him. I was right here by the 2 linemen, and guess I needed to spit, and I wasn't going to spit on my lineman, and I just spit ahead. But I would say he was back there where Jory was in that sense, and he asked, or he goes, "You trying to spit on me?" And at that point, I mean, I felt like he was insulting me. Like I wouldn't spit on somebody. I'm damn sure not trying to spit on you. Like, we're about to play a game. I'm wondering why you're trying to mess with the rookie. And so when I stepped through, I actually said the words like, "What the hell would I, excuse me, but I'm probably even more colorful. What would I need to spit on you for?" And he just spit on me in that moment. And it was more of a surprise than anything. Refs obviously saw it through the flag. I was like, hell yeah, we get 15 yards to start the game off. Didn't realize he was getting ejected. Unfortunate that he did. Hell of a player. Changed our plan and our blocking scheme, as I've told you all right before the week, that we're going to protect against him. So helped in that manner, but I don't wish for anybody to get out of the game. I'm sure he probably regrets that to some extent. I'm pretty sure he knows I didn't try to spit on him or wasn't even aiming to spit on him. So something that's probably going to need a lot of coverage and a lot of attention that feel sorry for him in the sense of, yeah, I mean, I know how excited each and every one of us are, right, to kick off the season and the season opener, and hell of a player like that doesn't even get a chance in the first play. Unfortunate circumstances.
Well, intentional, unintentional. It was a spit, and the league has got to make a decision. We should find out this afternoon whether or not Carter's going to be suspended for the Kansas City game this weekend. Now, remember, this goes back almost 30 years when the Orioles were in the playoffs and Roberto Alomar spit on umpire Marv Hirschbeck. And this justice went in those days. I mean, that's the ultimate sign of disrespect. I can't believe he wasn't suspended for the playoffs, but they suspended him for like the first, 7 or 8 games of the following season. That's how that was handled. Steve Smith, about 20 years ago, was involved in an incident, over 20 years ago, when he was playing for Carolina, and they were playing the Patriots in the Super Bowl. This was in Houston. And Steve Smith was a fiery guy. You know, he used to get into it with different players, and he got into it with Tyrone Poole, who he accused of spitting on him during their jawing session, and they had to separate him. They didn't throw him out of the game, but that was a big to-do as part of that Super Bowl, which was won by Tyrone Poole and the Patriots. So for spitting perspective, Steve Smith was on the Dan Patrick Show explaining that, spitting is just the one thing that you cannot do.
Let's say 1,000 things I can respond to. One of them may be thumping someone in an Adam's apple, but spitting is not on my list of 1,000 of my natural reaction when someone says something to me that I dislike.
I thought Dak baited him. I keep using the word baiting because
I don't see, here's the problem. Football games are a bait game from the jump. But I don't think Dak baited him into spitting on him.
Yeah, I think he did because Dak spits in the direction of Jalen Carter. Now, that doesn't mean Jalen Carter should have done it right in front of the official. But I think Jalen Carter, you know how you get prior to a game, you're amped up.
No. I don't know how I get to spit in someone's direction.
No, you're just amped up. You're amped up, and then he thinks Dak is spitting in his direction. Now, this is a guy who's been triggered, when it comes to personal foul penalties. He leads the league in that. I mean, he could be baited.
And that's all. Yeah, that's all. That's great. But you also got to understand, too, he was in their huddle.
I know.
Right? So that's not baiting. That's actually, I'm the leader of this huddle. You don't need to be in here.
Where are his teammates, Steve?
They're exactly where you saw they were his teammates.
They know that they should have grabbed. They know that he can be baited.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's what I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I think it's a disgusting act. But the unfortunate part is he's a heck of a football player. And everyone is going to start now writing articles of when he was late to Boy Scout camp, right? when he, they're going to find all these stories now. And unfortunately, he is going to be trolled and people are going to be saying things. That's the one thing, right? Just the empathy level of just being a human being of how our social media is today. That's all we're going to hear. Some idiot's gonna walk up to him one day and go, "Oh, don't spit on me." Like they're gonna be saying things, and I feel bad for him because he's a young player who's in a very who's on a very successful team. They're gonna be well covered, and he now is gonna be the butt end of people's jokes for maybe 6 months. But for that individual that it's about, it's gonna feel like eternity.
Does the NFL discipline him further? Would you?
Again, Dan, I'm gonna be honest. Man, it's so nasty. I don't want to touch it, bro. Like I got 4 kids. I wiped all their butts. Right? This is the blow up diaper. Like it's rock, paper, scissors, who deals with it? Right? And the blow up is like when they have pants on.
Yeah.
And it goes.
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah. I
down the legs.
I got 4 kids too.
Well, I could too, but yes, I remember those days. I don't know if it's quite a comparison to that, but I think it is the ultimate sign of disrespect on the field if you spit on another player. And I just don't know what the NFL will do here. This is a very tough situation, and maybe the apology and the fact that he did miss an entire game will serve as the punishment along with a fine, and there'll be the max fine, whatever it is, $100,000 or something like that. But I'm sure this has been discussed on Park Avenue through the weekend, and we should find out something later this afternoon. Now, I don't think that Lamar Jackson is going to face any punishment off of this. Maybe he gets a fine, but this team and the stadium people in Orchard Park have to do a better job with this. This was during last night's 41-40 loss to the Buffalo Bills, where the Ravens blew that 15-point lead in the fourth quarter. If you look at the headline where it says that Lamar Jackson shoved a fan, you think, oh, yeah, he's walking off the field really pissed that his team blew the 15-point lead. No. This was earlier in the game, and Lamar Jackson had thrown a touchdown pass to DeAndre Hopkins to give the Ravens a 34-14 lead with just a minute left in the third quarter. Well, that, you would think at that point, with the Ravens known for their defense, that pretty much cements the game. Well, a fan wearing a red Bills jersey initially hit Hopkins on the helmet before doing the same to Lamar, who immediately delivered a two-hand push, that sent the fan falling backward. The fan was ejected, and Jackson said after the game, he slapped me and he was talking, so I just forgot where I was for a little bit. You have to think in those situations. You have security out there. Let security handle it, but I just let my emotions get the best of me. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. I'd learn from that. And so I think you got to give him a break here. I do. I don't think that you suspend him. Maybe there's a small fine for that. But, fans, there's a line that you don't cross. And slapping people on the helmet is just not something you do. I mean, maybe it's not like it was when Mike Curtis of the Baltimore Colts tackled a drunk fan who was trying to steal the football during a timeout during a game. The guy picks the ball up and Curtis hunts him down like he's a running back and decks him, knocks him to the ground. And maybe it's not that, but you get, there's got to be some separation. Now, they like to get the fans close to the field. They've got the seats that sit there. We've got things like the Lambeau Leap where players are jumping in the stands. So, some of that's on them. But you can't have that, and Lamar knows that you can't shove a fan. But on the other hand, you got to have a little bit more control. I think you got to have a little bit more control by security of the fans, not necessarily by Lamar. It's coming up. We'll talk more about the win yesterday and what's ahead in a short week as they get ready for the Packers, and also the celebration of Cal Ripken and what turned out to be an incredible night at Camden Yards. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. As Dan Quinn said after yesterday's 21-6 win over the Giants, sleep fast. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Such is life in the NFL when you're coming off an appearance in the NFC Championship game with the Rookie of the Year at quarterback, who is one of the most exciting players in the NFL. It is off to Green Bay on Thursday night. Washington is a 3.5-point underdog, and we'll see. We'll see. This is what comes along with being a team in the spotlight, not a team under the radar. But they took care of business yesterday on a day where, especially offensively, they looked, they had a bunch of yards. Jayden Daniels ran for 68 yards, had a nice game throwing the ball, except he was a little bit off. Could have completed a couple more of his passes. He called it a sloppy win. But defensively, and this is something that was at times a problem last year, especially in the early part of the season. They got better as the year went on. But in the offseason, they loaded up on guys. And some questioned why they brought in Javon Kinlaw for all that money. He had essentially been a first-round pick who hadn't lived up to expectations, spent last year with the New York Jets. They weren't interested in bringing him back. And he got a fairly sizable contract to come here. Well, he turned out to be a big run stuffer yesterday. Dietrich Wise, who they also picked up. Deron Payne. Deron Payne was a guy who's left over from the Olbers. The fact is he he might have been a Gruden guy. I think he was. I think he was actually drafted during the Jay Gruden era. And he stuck around, and this is the last year of his contract, and you heard it all through training camp. Yeah, he's really looking good. Payne has been kind of in and out, has had some good games, but he showed out yesterday. He had a sack and a couple of big tackles. He looks like he's in a contract year. Now, whether he's going to get another one here, we'll have to see, but he's a second contract guy who's playing very well for them now. And then you also make a couple of big additions. One got some attention, Deebo Samuel, who was also in the last year of his contract. They gave up a fifth-round pick to get him, and there's question whether you're going to re-sign him. But he gave you everything you could have asked for. And with Terry McLaurin holding out or holding in, whatever it was, he did not participate in minicamp, didn't participate in training camp, none of the exhibition games. And really, the first time he was on the field with Jaden Daniels in a game was the first time since they lost in the NFC Championship game to Philadelphia. And he had only 2 catches for 27 yards. Meantime, Deebo Samuel was targeted 10 times. He had 7 catches for 77 yards and put the game on ice with a 19-yard touchdown run. It's a guy who does a lot of different things. And, we're going to hear from Cliff Kingsbury. I guess it's going to be tomorrow, I'm not sure. But I don't even know if you'll hear from the coordinators this week on such a short week because they're going to fly out to Green Bay on Wednesday. But, that's Barry Zerluga's got a column about this today. It's like, a kid playing on the floor with his toys and they go, oh, look at this gadget. What can I do with that? And he can do a lot of different things with Deebo, as we saw yesterday. This was Dan Quinn on the new additions that he's got and guys like that stepping up, along with maybe the surprise of the day, because I think that there was a feeling that Chris Rodriguez was going to carry the load at running back. Instead, it was the guy they called Bill, Ja'Cory Croxy Merritt, 7th-round pick at Arizona, played only 1 game last year because they looked at his eligibility and said no. He stuck around, played on the practice squad, looked good when they went to the pro day. They took him in the 7th round. He has 82 yards and a touchdown. This is Quinn.
That's what it's going to take. It's going to take all of us. So for guys to step in, I was pleased to see Deebo, get to kind of express that play of being aggressive. If you'd ask us, I would say we had too many, the 50-50 balls and drops and penalties that were not, what were normal there. But to know that we can lean on one another, and I know you've heard me say this before, but I do like our team, and that's how you have to win games some way, in different phases to go through it. And so to be able to lean in on the defense today, I thought that was a good sign.
Yeah, and as far as what he's seeing from Deebo,
he's a lot of fun to coach too. He plays aggressive and downhill. So we missed some, so we'll be wanting to look at those. But also the touchdown run of that was to me quintessential him. We've seen that movie, we know what that looks like, and how to feature it into this offense. And so I think that was part of the reasoning, with Adam and the trade and why it was such a good fit, because when you see what somebody can do and you know how to put that into the offense, that's like the blend of scouting and coaching to say, I know what a player can do and how we would do it. And so I hadn't known him, but man, it was cool to get to know him and coach him now and find out what he can do.
Yeah, look, they gave up a 5th-round pick to San Francisco to get him, and then they trade Brian Robinson to San Francisco for a 6th-round pick. So you essentially trade a 5th-rounder for a 6th-rounder. They were going to cut Robinson if nobody was willing to trade for him, and they get a pick in return. So you move down 1 round for a guy who makes an enormous contribution. Who knows what's going to happen the rest of the way. He does have a history of injury, but in the opening game, an enormous factor. He was targeted 10 times, 7 catches, 77 yards, plus a 19-yard touchdown run. Here's Deebo, who's a man of few words, but as we saw yesterday, many actions.
Deebo, when you thought about coming here and about playing with Jaden, is this kind of what you thought it might look like, and you know, the connection you could have with a guy like that?
I didn't know what it was going to look like, to be honest, just getting here. But as the flow kept going throughout OTAs and camp, how well we was connected, we just started to build chemistry, and we just showed it today.
Is there a good number of carries for you in a game? Like, do you like to run the ball a certain amount of times?
I like to touch the ball, for sure.
Touches all for you?
The right
good
number
for
the
you?
right number is the right number.
That's it. So so far so good. He's in a contract year, so he's going to want to put up some big numbers, and whether that or not they sign him at the end of the year. But this is why you got the guy. And while Terry McLaurin wasn't practicing, there was timing being made between Jaden Daniels and Deebo Samuel. And, boy, they have been looking for a number 2 opposite McLaurin for a long time. And this is a guy who does different things. And whether he carries the ball or whether he catches the ball, he is a threat. And, you know, the tape that surfaced off of minicamp, oh, boy, he looks fat. No, he's not fat. He's thick. He's strong. He's a guy who could do different things. And when you run the ball with him, you don't hold your breath. And that was a spectacular 19-yard run with again, good blocking in front of him. And, you know, the fact that you made the pickups in the offseason that you did to make that happen. And Bill made a nice block on the play, too. And, you know, to see that dynamic run with the blocking that he had in front of him, there's a lot of good things to be optimistic about this team. Long way to go. Long way to go. Tough schedule. Tough turnaround this week going to Green Bay, which, if you saw yesterday against Detroit, looked really, really good. So we got to last week. We're around the 20th anniversary of Katrina, and the comeback of the city of New Orleans from Katrina is really a dramatic story, and it involves the New Orleans Saints. And the New Orleans Saints, back in the Superdome after a year away, they had to play in San Antonio where they rebuilt the stadium. They had a Monday night game against the Atlanta Falcons, and it is so significant in what the team was able to do and what the city was able to do that they have put up a statue of Steve Gleason blocking that punt in that game in 2006. And Gleason, you know, sadly now is suffering from ALS, battling that. But on that night, the Superdome just exploded. Tony Kornheiser was doing Monday Night Football in those days, and he said that's the loudest he ever heard anything when he blocked that punt. And so in looking back on that and what it meant to the city in recovery, Drew Brees showed up on the Rich Eisen show last week to relive that. And there was a backstory on Brees and the Saints, which we also found out about the other day. I'll get to that. But this was Drew Brees' recollection of what happened that night and how much that blocked punt meant in that win against the Atlanta Falcons when, as the game started out, Atlanta has the ball. They go 3 and out, and you're thinking that Brees is going to come onto the field, but the block by Gleason changed all that.
My mindset is I'm really not even watching the punt. I'm sitting there I'm zoned in on, okay, here's the first play. What am I looking for? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm more just focusing on, you know, what am I going to do when I step on the field to execute this first drive in what is the biggest game of all of our lives, you know, up to this point. And I hear it before I ever see it. Is this block punt by Steve Gleason? I mean, it was like a shotgun blast. And then the Superdome absolutely erupted. I mean, it was like it could have blown the top off. But just what that symbolized, and also the person who was responsible for that, Steve Gleason, probably one of the greatest human beings, one of the greatest teammates ever. And we know his story and his fight with ALS. But that was a symbol to not just the city, but the world that, you know, New Orleans was going to come back stronger than ever.
And there
was no way we were going to lose that game.
Oh, exactly. One of those where 4 snaps in, game's over. I sensed it. I felt it. It was unbelievable to witness it. It's so rare, right, for fans to get what they want so quickly in this day and age with a big moment that everybody in the building knew they will never forget the rest of their lives. I am wondering, though, in the first 15 scripted, what was the first play? I imagine, what were you and Sean going to take your shot? What were you?
That's a great question. I don't remember, but I do remember when we got the ball, the first possession, we did go down and score, but we had to convert a couple third downs. And I remember the Falcons had some exotic pressure packages, and I was just getting the feeling like, man, like they need a little momentum shift here. So they're going to dial up one of these on the first third down. So sure enough, it was like 3rd and 10, and we call one of my favorite pass plays. But they dial up one of these pressures, and they have a guy free, and he's bearing down on me. It's one of those where it's like, dude, just stand in here and deliver the ball. And I got absolutely rocked. But hey, completed pass, and then I think we end up running like some kind of a reverse to Devery Henderson and scoring and going up 14-zip. And it was just kind of like further putting the nail in the coffin as far as like how this night was going to go and how we're going to beat these guys. But no, I remember I remember my back hitting the turf pretty hard, but then knowing, hey, we're going to score a touchdown and we're going to go win this thing.
That's how the night unfolded. They did win, but that's not how the night started, as I think most of us found out for the first time with Sean Payton on the Eisen Show last week, as you hear it here on ESPN 630. And he explained that the night that Drew Brees had almost didn't happen at all.
We had valet parking because we were concerned with players getting into being on time, getting into the parking garage. And we have this one player, our starting quarterback, Drew Brees.
Yes, sir.
All right, who gets caught in traffic on I-10. And so the rule of thumb is 2 hours before the game, all players are checked into the locker room. I mean, that's a rule. Cell phones off. And the security guys tell me Drew's running behind, and it's not that I'm concerned he's running behind. It's that I know how organized and how anal he is with his schedule. And he's usually 4 hours at the stadium before the game. So I'm thinking to myself, what are the habits and rituals that he's not going to be able to partake in that get him ready to play? And he had this old Toyota Land Rover, but it was an old one with a rack on the top, something like you would see on Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And so it was an older used car he's driving. They finally escort him. The police escort him to the Superdome. And when he makes the turn to go, it's a parking garage. He enters the parking garage and the rack wedges. It wedges on the roof of the concrete, and his car gets stuck. And so he takes the keys out of the ignition, throws them on the seat, opens the door, grabs his duffel bag, and he tells the parking attendant, "Figure out a way to fix this." I'm sitting in the hallway when he comes down the hallway, and he's there 2 hours and 4 minutes before kickoff. And I said, "Hey, everything's good. Everything's good. No worries." But he's got this unsettled look, which makes me unsettled. And so I find out later they had to take air out of all 4 tires to get his car past that height requirement. And look, fortunately for us, he played well. And that was a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
If you were Atlanta.
It's a good thing special teams. Right. It's a good thing special teams scored first.
Yeah. So that is the story that I had never heard. And that's Sean Payton, now the coach of the Broncos, then coach of the Saints in 2006. And you know, look, if Drew Brees was even an hour out from the game and still not there, they'd have found a way to get him in there, and he would have played and probably played well. And the Gleason punt, really, I mean, that essentially emotionally ended the game. And 7 points isn't enough to win it, but they were going to win the game. I mean, that was just an awakening night for New Orleans, and a magical night that started with a bang. And that's one game where I would say Drew Brees kind of played a secondary role. Did enough to win, but as Peyton said, almost didn't get there. All right, let me finish with this on a positive note. This was Tom Brady does the LFG interview after the game. He gives an award to the top player. I think you understand what LFG stands for. And he had it with Jayden Daniels yesterday after his performance in the Commanders' victory over the Giants.
Jayden, I saw your mom in the pregame, and she said, hey, my boy's going to win LFG Player of the Game today. And I said, you know what? At home, I'm never betting against him. Congratulations. What a great win today. How'd you feel after coming off that kind of a little bit of a slow start?
Man, you know how it is. Week one, we didn't play our best. We played sloppy. You got to get all the week one jitters out. But, we executed enough to get a win.
Yeah, you sure did. You got some guys that maybe the Commanders fans haven't been as familiar with. Deebo Samuel, you found him. It looked like you got a great connection with him. How'd it feel being out there with him in the huddle today?
Man, it felt great. He's just another weapon to our offense, and just get him the ball, handle the ball, get him the ball in space, and he makes a lot of good things happen.
And your rookie running back, kind of breaking one there in the fourth quarter. Bill, everyone calls him Bill. He looked pretty good out there. You got rid of Robinson. He stepped in, did an incredible job.
He did his thing. I'm super happy for him. I can't be mad at him even though I want to in that situation to stay in bounds and burn the clock, but that's things he got to learn. But I'm super happy for how hard he ran, great cuts, and I'm just super pumped for him.
Yeah, it was a great win by you guys. And last question, that defensive line of yours today was awesome. What's it like being on that sideline, watching those guys pressure Russ like they did all day long?
Man, I'm finally glad they got to rush against somebody else other than me. So I'm super happy those guys been getting after all camp, and to go out here and show it like that in that fashion, man, super pumped for them.
Yeah, well, they can't really hit Jayden Daniels during training camp, but you get the message there. And, the short turnaround that they've got, they got to start getting ready for the Green Bay Packers, which they'll face on Thursday night, meaning today is sort of like a Wednesday out there. But, yeah, defensively, can they keep this up against what looks like a pretty much of a humming offense of Green Bay, as they looked very good yesterday against Detroit? Who knows? But they keep the Giants 4 of 16 on third down. They hurt themselves with penalties. They had 12 penalties for 89 yards. That's something they have to clean up. But they held the Giants to 3.2 yards rushing, and a lot of their rushing totals came from Russell Wilson, who had more than half of their yards. They had only 74 yards rushing. He had 44 of them on 8 carries. And the fact that they were able to control him in yardage, and although the Giants ate up a lot of clock, the time of possession, even though they did not get in the end zone, they beat Washington in time of possession. But yardage 432 for the Commanders, 231 for the Giants, and in what is now preseason in the NFL, you can call it what you want, but with the starters not playing at all, this is them getting their feet wet. And they're going to do it a lot in the first week, playing 2 games over a 5-day period. But that's what happens when you have a good season the year before. So we'll talk more about the Packers coming up later this week. Plus, Bram, I'm sure, will have a lot to say next as he comes up here on ESPN 630. I will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.